This is Scott Welch, Muscle Insider Magazine. I'm here with the legend, Shawn Ray. How are you doing today? Welcome to Vancouver.
Absolutely, man. I feel like I'm in California with the weather the way it is. It's nice to be here.
So congratulations, you're with Mutant now. This is huge for you. I mean, you're a legend in the industry of bodybuilding, and now you're with one of the biggest brands in the industry.
Well, I mean, I've always said that, when you prepare yourself for opportunity, sometimes it presents itself. And this was a while in the making, but the timing couldn't have been better. Once again, like you mentioned earlier, we were talking, I've pretty much done everything in this sport. I'm not new to working with a supplement company, but I'm excited about working with one that has a reputation like Mutant. Not only are they global, but there's a lot of people that love the product, which is an easy sell for me to help spread the gospel, right? So my whole ambition here is to try to get new people that are on their way up the ladder on a team that they can feel welcome and feel a part of. And I know I felt that way when Joe Weider signed me to an agreement back when I was 21 years old, and I became part of the family, and I got an opportunity to explore the Weider principles, the Weider products, and live the Weider lifestyle. That's every kid's dream back in the 80s, right? Somehow along the way, a lot of those dreams have been vanquished because a lot of companies were not working with athletes. This is an opportunity with the help of Jim McMahon and the whole Mutant Nation team and family to bring to life a lot of visions that I saw for myself, a lot that I've experienced, and I'm in a very good position here to help some of those dreams come true.
Now, you had an amazing career, obviously, at an early age, getting signed, you touched on, with Joe Weider. Mm-hmm. What was it like in the early days working with Weider Nutrition? That was his main line. I think he had 5 lines at the time. What was that like?
Very hands-on. I mean, Joe had a lot of irons in the fire. I was just one new toy when I came out of the amateurs into the pros that was added to his collection of stable of professionals. I had to earn my stripes. Being validated by winning the American National Championships and then coming into the fold with all these seasoned professionals like Lee Haney and Labrada and all these other athletes, that was one thing. But also working with Rick Wayne and with Bill Reynolds, the late Bill Reynolds, and Peter McGough and some of the people over there, Jerry Candela, Kevin Wayne, that were on the staff of Weider. It was a big machine, working with Ben Weider and Eric Weider. That was more fulfilling.
You've been with a lot of different supplement companies over the year, Weider Nutrition, Biotech, and some of the others. Take me through the sponsorship, because you have never made a living outside of the bodybuilding industry. How have you been able to do that?
Yeah, I like to tell people I got a PhD, a master's, an MBA. My doctorate is all in bodybuilding. My education took me from high school to junior college to Cal State Fullerton. And ironically, while I was in college, I was preparing for the Mr. Olympia. I came home from the Mr. Olympia in 1988, and my world tour began. And I actually had to leave college because I wasn't there to do the work. My travels were taking me places weeks at a time that I couldn't come back and do the classwork. So I really questioned myself, like, why am I here in the classroom? I'm 21 years old. I'm at a crossroads. My parents have helped me sustain my lifestyle as a bodybuilder up until that point. And I was all in. I had to go all in with no plan B, that I'm going to leave school and I'm going to be a professional bodybuilder. I had $1,000 a month coming in from Joe Weider. And then I realized I'm a product. And if I'm a product, I have to produce. And I created Shawn Ray Productions with nobody's input coming from the outside. I knew that I was going to be making t-shirts. I knew that I was going to be making posters. I knew one day I would be making videos. And these are products that I would be producing. I also knew that I wanted to work in camera and film. I took acting for the camera. I took voice and diction. I was preparing myself for opportunities that would come later in life, and I would be prepared. So rather than play PlayStation and video games and hang out and party, I was just preparing myself for the unknown. The only thing that I did know was winning opens up doors. Being a champion creates opportunities. And I realized that the world is a very big place. So while I wasn't really anybody in my hometown, there were people in Mexico, Japan, and China, and Italy, and Spain that were my height and even shorter that were looking up to me. I was getting the fan letters. I was writing back one at a time. And this is where Shawn Ray Productions started in 1988. And I started to produce things. And along the way, through my bodybuilding career, on the other side of the microphone, working on Flex Magazine Workout, working with ESPN, working with Fox Sports Net, then eventually becoming a bodybuilding promoter, creating muscle camps, becoming an agent for some of the athletes. I was a guy that would find athletes work, and I would get a percentage of a finder's fee. This is how I wound up just staying in the business of bodybuilding, and I realized that working with non-competing companies is the same thing that football players do and basketball players do. They've got different things. I used to see Mike Tyson, he'd be running with a can of Pepsi, and then I would see him doing some video game, and then he's hawking cars, and I thought, well, I can do that. And in bodybuilding, I realized there's clothing companies, there's shoe companies, there's belts, there's straps, there's gyms, all of these different entities. And I became one of those guys that was pursuing marketing, branding, and advertising, and I got really good at it. And so I worked with a lot of the major companies, and I continue to do that. But you can only stay in this business if you produce. So the things I was offering these companies, I was able to give them tenfold. And then that wheel just continued to spin, and I'm still on that wheel today. And what's great about it is that where opportunity comes for me, I start creating opportunities for others and the company, and that keeps me alive.
Now you travel, I mean, throughout the year. How many different countries are you typically in? Obviously, we came out of last year with COVID, so it's not really a fair representation. But each year, how many countries would you say you are in?
Yeah, I've made it a point that, YOLO, you only live once, right? When I was a teenager on the other side of this microphone, they asked me what I wanted to do. I said, well, I want to be Mr. Olympia, I want to travel the world, and I want to be rich. Not in that order. But I thought that if you are the best at what you do, money shouldn't become a problem for you, and it can sustain opportunities for you and create opportunities for others. I did the business of bodybuilding, so I lived my life from 17 years old to 36 years old in the gym as a machine, competing every single year at my highest level. And in doing that, recognizing that I was a historian, there were a lot of places I wanted to go, not because I wanted to go make money or show off my physique, but because I wanted to see the history. I wanted to go to South Africa and see where Nelson Mandela was from. I wanted to go to Brazil to see the statue of the Christ. I wanted to see the Big Ben in England. So I strategically would contact the state chairman of bodybuilding in these various countries, sending fax, writing letters, sending pictures. And the more I sent out, the more opportunities I would have coming back my way. So I found myself posing in 1989 in Red Square. I was invited there, and I went from Russia over to Italy, from Italy over to Spain, and the things just kind of snowballed because I made it my mission. These are the places I want to go, and I got to contact the people to get there. And it certainly opened the doors that I was on the top of my game as a bodybuilder, but I took the time out to pursue my passion, was wanting to see the world. There's really one place I haven't been, and that's Iran. And Iran's always kind of been a hotbed. I got a lot of people over in Iran that I got a big following. I wanted to see it. I don't know that I ever will, because it's still a very hot place. But that's the thing that Joe Weider told me when I was starting out, that you're going to see the world. And when someone tells you that when you're 20 years old, you don't believe it. And now that I've actually seen it, it's like, with the help of Mutant, with the help of Weider, with the help of some of the companies I've worked for, I've been able to see the world in spades. I've got that education so that when I get older, I'm not going to long to start traveling and having to go through the rigors of, going through checkpoints and all that other stuff at an older age. Part of my business was being a missionary for bodybuilding. I stole that word from Ben Weider because that's exactly what he was, spreading the gospel. I can't go anywhere in the world without talking about my craft. And you can't exist this long in this industry if you're not passionate about what you do. Traveling for me is just a part of the business, but it's the destination and it's the journey that gets me out of bed.
Victory line from Joe Weider, the Mega Caps 2030. We had the Smilax Officialis. We had the mass cuts, the power cuts, the
As part of that victory.
the victory line. You were there. How has supplementation changed for you in terms of what you had access to back then, where BCAAs and things like that were just in a pill format, to what you see now with Mutant?
Yeah, well, I mean, back in my days, like desiccated liver. I mean, we've really come a long way because we know more about how the human body functions, what our bodies can absorb, and a lot more manufacturers are taking the time to study the ingredients that they put in their products. And of course, Mutant is known for that by delivering the best products that it can. But it comes down to what your body can absorb. Every body is not a cookie cutter machine. What works for me may not work for you, which is why this space of supplements is so vast. There's so much competition. It's like, I wanted a car when I was a teenager coming up, but where do you begin? Your car is a reflection of your personality, or it's a reflection of your budget. And supplements are very much the same. If you can't afford the good stuff, you're going to wind up getting the cheap stuff. So now we're at a point where people are reading the labels. We have vegans. We have people that are allergic with food allergies, and there's certain things that your body can't absorb. The good thing is that when you look across the Mutant line, it seems like there's something for everybody. And I'm new to this family, but I definitely will be making sure that I'm able to dot the I and cross the T's, because this is a very important component. of building a body. I mean, supplements are that. They're not hormones. They're not going to create something that's not there, but they'll supplement. If you train hard enough, they'll supplement the hard work and help you recover and respond better.
You were always really tight with your nutrition. How important is nutrition back in the day to your success as obviously one of the most successful bodybuilders in history?
Yeah, people say the training is the hardest part. The nutrition is key because you are what you eat. And at the end of the day, the food is the fuel that creates this whole thing right here. Recovery is number 2. The training is the easy part because when you train hard one time, you can do it again and again and again. But the mind comes in when you're talking about the food deprivation, the calorie deprivation, the limitation on the varieties, the blandness, the tightness on the diet. It wreaks havoc on your brain. And some people will fall right off the wagon. So I was very disciplined to know that there's things I can eat and there's things I couldn't eat. There's a time and a season for certain foods. But this is what separates the champions. And it comes down to the nutrition. Everybody wants to say he's got better genetics than me or he's on better drugs than me. It has a whole lot more to do with what you put in your mouth and when and how much than almost anything else.
Only 2 men ever were in your competing against you that you didn't defeat. Dorian Yates and Lee Haney. Tell me a little bit. I would say, give me 30 seconds on each of those competitors that sticks out in your mind back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fortunate side and an unfortunate side to that because I came at the tail end of the guys that were my height. Remember, I started bodybuilding. Samir Banu was Mr. Olympia at 5'6". Prior to him, we had Chris Dickerson, who's shorter than Samir Banu. And I also had Mohamed McAway, the Canadian Egyptian, who was second place in 1983 and 84, as a role model of what was possible for people my height. I come along, 5'7", I think there's a great opportunity, and then here comes Lee Haney the year I graduate in 84 at 5'10". He rattles off 8 victories on the Olympia, and then here comes 5'10" Dorian Yates. He rattles off another 6. Competing against Lee Haney was a little bit more surreal because I was young. I wasn't in my prime. I'd won the Arnold Classic in 91, but that's also the same year Lee Haney won his last Olympia. And I was still a fan, and that was his absolute best year. So I caught the tail end of Lee Haney. I could accept not beating Lee Haney. He's a little bit older. Then here comes Dorian Yates in 1992, and he inherits the throne in the absence of Lee Haney. And he's almost on the same par, shoulder for shoulder and height-wise and size. And then he just supersized everything. And, of course, it was the era of the mass monsters. And not only did I not beat him, but all the other mass monsters, Paul Dillette, Kevin Levrone, we threw a lot at Dorian Yates, and none of us were able to defeat him based on the criteria. Never accepted the fact that he was a better bodybuilder. I accepted the judge's final decision. Not beating those 2 guys, I have a very valid reason. Because there was nobody else in my era that beat those guys. So I'm okay with that. And of course, by the time Dorian Yates retired, an even bigger person in the form of Ronnie Coleman came along. He inherited the throne in 1998, and he ran with it for 8 years. And in the first 4 years, I realized that's not something I can compete with.
How have you been able to reinvent yourself? Because I look at your social media following, and it's just massive. How important is that to keeping Shawn Ray as a huge brand still to this day?
Yeah, I think a lot of bodybuilders, they wait for something to happen. And at the end of the day, there are people hungry for things that, they see the physique. So a lot of people are being reintroduced to my body of work because I'm able to regurgitate some old photographs of me back in the day. But a lot of people want to know, how do you live? What do you do? What do you eat? Where do you go? What's your family like? I mean, there's more to me than just a hard body physique that's 20 years in retirement. And I find that more people have things in common with me or even romanticize about the things that bodybuilding has provided me. I know that when I was coming up, I used to see Tom Platz in a convertible Corvette on the magazine cover and Rich Gaspari standing next to her, this really hot chick taking photos. And I would romanticize about wanting to be that. And I knew that lifting weights and dieting and training hard would get me that one day. And now that that's happened, I'm showing the younger guys coming up, that happened for me then. But all of that sweat equity, all that deprivation, all that hard work has led me to this end where I can go to nice hotels, I can hang out by the pool, I can eat a fat steak, I can have a nice glass of wine, and at the same time, I can produce and give back. I have the biggest show in Hawaii, the Shawn Ray Classic in November. I'm working with one of the mega giant supplement companies that's going to create opportunities for other athletes to be able to supplement their journeys along the way. I work for the Mr. Olympia as a consultant. I'm a reporter that I get to interview these guys kind of coming up in the industry. I'm showing people that you don't have to die when your career is over. There are opportunities, but really in this business, you are what you work for. People aren't knocking on my door, handing things to me. The things I've got, I've earned. And I don't. There's a lot of things I don't feel like I'm worthy of or that I deserve, which is why I try to find a way to share it with other people. If I can give it all back, then I'll stay in business for a very long time.
Mutant leaves humanity behind, and then obviously now with you as the global brand ambassador for that, what is your vision for all the Mutant fans out there, the competitors and people like that? How are you going to bring them into the Mutant brand?
Yeah, well, I'm a marketing and branding and promotion type of guy. That's where I come from. A lot of people see me as this one-dimensional bodybuilder, but the list of sponsors that I've worked with over the years have brought me to this end. And with the company being as global as it is, it's going to create some very good opportunities for athletes out there seeking something to belong to. A lot of athletes are disenfranchised because no one's knocking on their door. Like you said, I'm global. I'm going out there. I'm looking for the talent. If you're doing the work, I'm going to find you. We're going to run into each other the same way that John Brown found me in the gym and told me that I could be something. The way that Cus D'Amato found Mike Tyson and told him he could be the heavyweight champion of the world. I'm looking for that next big thing. I'm looking for that next Shawn Ray. Potential is out there. Possibilities are endless. And with Mutant's help, we'll be able to supplement those guys' careers and bring them along and put them out there in the world. I want to be the one that goes, here's the next Mr. Olympia right here. That's what Mutant Nation is about. Because as a team, I'm going to be getting pictures. Hey, Shawn, check this guy out from Mexico. Hey, check this guy out from Germany. And then as a team, we're going to collectively say, you know what? Let's give him a hand up. We don't want to give him a hand out. We'll give him a hand up, help him along his journey. He'll be the one that's going to tell us how our products are. He'll be the one that's using the products, telling us whether they're helpful to him or not, or her. This is inclusive of guys and girls. So this is something that I'm bringing with passion and with fury on a global scale, looking for the next big thing to bring to Mutant. Because I'm not the big thing anymore. I'm retired. I've been there. I've done that. I know what it's like. So I want to help create opportunities for athletes coming up behind me.
The 212 Olympia was in when you were competing. Would you have ever been beaten?
Well, I mean, I hate to toot my own horn. I was the guy that created and promoted the very first 202-pound competition, which David Henry won, and he went on to win the 202 Olympia back in 2007. It since has grown to the 212, and that was my sweet spot for my Olympia days. There's no one competing right now, today, at 212 that I would consider my equal. I mean, Sean Clarita, all due respect, he's 177 pounds. Two totally different bodies. It's hard to make those modern day comparisons with an old school physique. But if it was here, I would still compete in the open because I was the best of what was left, right? I mean, they were bigger and taller, Lee Haney and Dorian Yates. But I wanted to be the best in the world. I didn't want to be the best little guy. I came very close. I had a good run, and not winning that is what kept me in the top 5 for 12 consecutive years. So I would stay in the open if I could.
When you were competing, prepping for a show, were you ever a keto guy? Were you always higher carb, moderate fat, or low fat? What was the nutrition looking like?
I think the word keto came when I retired. I never heard the word keto, and just like there's a lot of things that didn't exist back in my time 20 years ago, but I was almost equal when it came to carbs and protein. I played with my carbs when I wanted to drop weight, and I increased my cardio when I wanted to drop weight, and I ate more carbs, and I did less cardio when I wanted to get bigger. The one thing that I always was concerned about was making sure I got enough protein, because I knew that's what builds muscle. But in concert with that is you got to drink enough water, and a lot of guys forget water, and water is a very key component to transporting that protein through your system. Too much protein is hard on the kidneys as well, but I stayed hydrated all the time throughout.
When I used to read the bodybuilding magazines, I would read Iron Man, I would read Muscular Development, I would read Flex, I would read the different magazines, and I saw Muscle Mag back in the day, which you used to work for. I used to see your routines, and I would see some that said 44 sets for shoulders. I'd see some that would saying that was 18. What were you, a high volume guy? Were you moderate? What kind of volume of sets were you doing back in your prime?
Yeah, I think as I was getting my diploma in bodybuilding and my PhD, I did a little bit of everything. There was high volume days and there was heavy days. I didn't have a script. I know Dorian kept a diary that he's regurgitated and he's putting it out there, but I never looked back. That's why I never wrote anything down. Like, I'd come in the gym and I'd train with strangers and I'd go where they take me. The intensity would come from trying to wear that partner out. That little workout session, I would love to turn into a sparring session every chance I got. I wanted to become a fight. I wanted to see who's going to wind up throwing up and who's going to wind up quitting, who's going to have the bragging rights on a silent level. So I would increase the reps. I would start doing drop sets. I would start doing supersets. I would start doing heavier on the weight. So silently, my training would change from one person to the next. And if you caught me at the right time, man, it was the best feeling to have somebody throwing up during the workout, somebody passing out on the floor, someone quitting on you in a workout. That to me was the knockout, because when you're on the stage, it's a show. It's an art show. It's a fashion show. It's a personality contest. But in the gym, it's a fight. It's a 12-round heavyweight championship fight. And I took it that way. And Mike Tyson was my mentor in that regard. I always thought, like, what would Mike do if a training partner got in the ring to spar with Mike? Would Mike have fun? Would Mike take it easy? Would Mike hold back? Later, I found out that the Tyson crew had to pay sparring partners because no one wanted to spar with Mike, because Mike sparred the way he fought. And that stayed with me. I trained the way that I competed. I trained to win.
Excellent. So Scott Welch, Muscle Insider Magazine, there you have it with IFBB legend Shawn Ray, now a member of the Mutant Nation.